Hey YouTube, long time no see. It's Johnny here with something a little bit different from my usual content. Recently I've been thinking, what the hell, let's try something new for my channel. So I decided to take the most original route ever and make a top 10 list. So assuming most of you guys are fans of boss fights like I am, I thought you might enjoy my take on the 10 hardest bosses I've beaten so far. Keep in mind, this list is based off my own experiences with these games, so, if you think there's a boss missing or you disagree with the ordering, that's why. However, I would love to read your own top 10 in the comments. I'm also applying the one boss per game rule to keep it varied, and they will not be limited to bosses I've beaten on YouTube. Now, with that said, let's fucking get into it. Number 10, Taboo. Starting off with the final boss of the Subspace Emissary. More specifically, I'm talking about on intense difficulty, because this makes his attacks all way quicker and deal way more damage and knockback. Fortunately, they allow you 6 characters for this fight, which is more than any other point in the story mode, but when you can expect to die every 2 to 3 times you get hit, anything less would be pretty brutal. Plus he's got the off waves, which will require you to time 3 dodges in a row or you get one-shotted. Top it all off with a pretty thick health bar, and it's a decent challenge. Taboo on Intense was probably like the first really hard boss that I ever beat. I also just like his design, and his theme kicks ass, so I just like the fight in general. But hard as he is, if you pick your best 6 fighters and just make an effort to learn his attack patterns, it's pretty doable. Oh, and bonus points if you turn him into a trophy. Number 9, Korx. Look, I'll be the first one to tell you that I kinda suck at RPGs. I've always been more of a platformer kinda guy, but when I played this game about a year ago, I was not ready for this fight. Korx is a secret optional boss from another dimension who's kinda meant to symbolize the crazy godlike beings of the Final Fantasy series. In my opinion, he's a good bit harder than the final boss, Smithy. The battle itself has you fighting his main body and 4 crystals that support him. Each crystal has its own different attacks and attributes. It's kind of like the fight with the Axum Rangers earlier in the game, where your best bet's to take them down in a certain order. But even when you figure out the order, it's by no means easy. The green crystal will dish out punishing status effect moves like Petal Blast, and the other 3 crystals in Korx himself will just hit you with high damage attacks. All it takes is one bad turn and your team can be completely killed. If you plan on facing this guy yourself, my advice is to just save up as many rock candy as possible, cause I only had 1 and it was bad. Number 8, King Dice. With King Dice, you get 10 bosses for the price of 1. In this fight, you're forced to roll a dice to move your marker across the board. Each of the number spaces houses a sort of mini-boss on it, all of which pose a significant threat, though some are much harder than others. In particular, I'd say the skeleton horse, the roulette wheel, and this fucking monkey. Doing the fight like this makes it so much harder to be consistent because you need to adapt to so many different attacks. Luckily, the dice does move slow enough that you can get the timing down pretty solid, so on average you'll only have to fight like 3 or 4 of his goons. After that, you ideally avoid the start over space and get to the finish, which is when you meet the main man. He hits you with the same attack over and over, but it requires pretty precise parrying to not get hit by. You really feel the pressure at this point, but with enough bullets he does go down. Number 7, Link's Shadow. Zelda 2 on the NES is still the most ball-busting Zelda game to date, and Shadow Link earns his position as the final boss. This guy totally embodies the fuck you nature of some of these old NES bosses. It's really just like fighting yourself. The only problem is he has the reaction time of a computer. From what I can tell, he's impossible to hit while he's standing because he's just so damn good with his shield. What you can do is hit him as he lands after jumping. But doing this is not easy because he's so quick, and it feels like you're going to take some damage no matter how well you play. Not to mention you have to fight him right after fighting the Thunderbird, who himself is pretty hard. But I should mention this is all true if you fight him the intended way. You can actually cheese him pretty easily if you just crouch in the corner and stab. I felt like doing that would be a bit anticlimactic, so that's why he made it on the list. Number 6, Bollos. Just to get to this next guy, you have to run this gauntlet of spikes, falling rocks, enemies out the ass, and another goddamn boss. And there's no save point afterwards, which means when you inevitably die against Bollos, you have to run the gauntlet again, and again. Before you even think about facing Bollos with full health, you basically need every enemy placement and the previous boss memorized. Bollos himself has 4 phases of increasing difficulty. In the beginning, you're just dodging shockwaves and a bit of lightning. Then he becomes the size of a house and also spherical. Phase 3 is dodge the falling skulls and stand between the eyeballs. And finally, you're thrown into this clusterfuck. Moving platforms, a shielded Bollos, and an infinite supply of these little bastards all above a spike floor. We're starting to get to the really nasty bosses, cause I remember this guy taking me hours, and if you want the best ending of Cave Story, you really gotta work for it. Number 5, Sans. You know him, you love him, you main him. It's Mr. Sans Undertale. For anyone unaware, Undertale has 2 endings, the pacifist ending and the genocide ending. Sans is the much more difficult boss of the genocide route. This dude makes the other bosses in this game look like a joke. Just look at this opening move. You also can't hit him since he dodges every attack that you throw. So after that opener, he throws tricky platform challenges at you for a few minutes while he talks some shit. Then he makes a plea for a truce, which you need to decline, otherwise he insta-kills you. Then the attacks keep coming but are significantly tougher. He messes with the timeline, jump cutting you into the middle of his moves. He uses these bones to attack your cursor on the menu. Oh, and he can change gravity. If you can survive the onslaught for another few minutes, Sans will give up and just keep you trapped in the box. After which he'll fall asleep and then you can finally hit him. Number 4, Mike Tyson. Here we go, the champ himself.
Who's gonna rip his heart out? I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Punch-Out is like the ultimate test on reflexes, and Mike Tyson is your final challenge. For the first minute and 30 seconds of the fight, every punch he throws is an instant knockout. Look at this shit. His uppercuts are fast as hell and have no discernible rhythm, so you really have to rely on your reaction time alone. When you're first trying to learn his movement, expect to see a lot of game over screens. Just outlasting his explosive opening is the hardest part of the fight. Afterwards, he slows down a little and falls into a bit of a rhythm, but he still hits like a truck and has approximately 1 billion health. This shit feels like a David and Goliath story, but since Punch-Out feels so good to play, defeating him is one of the most satisfying moments. Number 3, rnstein and Smo. Yeah, I knew about these guys before my first Dark Souls playthrough. I heard all the stories. I fully expected to get my ass blasted and I was still not ready. This fight's a good old-fashioned 1v2, and either rnstein or Smo would be a good challenge on their own. Now, some people will argue that Manus is the hardest boss in Dark Souls 1. Well, I agree he's also absurdly difficult. I was personally stuck on this pair of dicks for longer. rnstein is nimble and can dash around the room, while Smo is slow, but deals massive damage. They both complement each other well and cover each other's weaknesses. Just figuring out when you can and can't afford to attack is a huge learning process. Something I quickly determined is you need patience in order to win this one. If you get greedy, expect Smo here to turn you into a fine red mist. This fight took me almost 8 minutes in my Dark Souls video because I was playing so cautious. Once you manage to kill one of them, the other gets all his health back and receives a buff. Either Ornstein will grow or Smo will gain lightning powers, because I guess that's necessary. But still, this is one of my favorite fights in the game. As brutal as it is, there are still 2 spots left that are harder. Number 2, Ruby Weapon. Hands down the hardest RPG boss I have ever encountered. Ruby Weapon is what's known as a super boss because he puts the final boss to absolute shame and is only meant to be fought when your party is pretty well maxed out. To give you an idea, I'll go down the list of random bullshit this guy has going for him. First of all, Ruby Weapon has access to Whirl Sand, which permanently removes one of your characters from the fight, and he's gonna spam it until you have one left.
Get that ass spin.
Thankfully, you can bypass this by entering the fight with only one character conscious. This is because when you have one character left, he will summon 2 tentacles. Together, the tentacles drain MP and health while inflicting nasty status effects. Meanwhile, Ruby himself will hit you with various high-level attacks. Also consider this boss has 800,000 health, second highest in the game, only second to the other super boss. And he also has 480 defense, which is the highest in the game by a fucking mile. Your attacks don't do shit. The fight basically becomes a race to summon the knights of the round as many times as the game will allow by using materia like W Summon and Mime. I tacked on another 15 hours to my Final Fantasy VII playthrough in order to become powerful enough to fight him and his counterpart Emerald Weapon. For what it's worth though, I say Ruby is definitely harder than Emerald. Either way, only one boss I can think of gave me more trouble than this. Number 1, the Cheetah Men. You don't fuck with the Cheetah Men. They will ruin your whole life. For those of you that don't know, I Wanna Be the Boshi is a fan game of I Wanna Be the Guy, which is an insanely difficult precision platformer with seemingly insurmountable boss fights. It mostly uses assets like sprites and music from other games. Boshi takes that simple concept and dials it up to an 11. The Cheetah Men act as a secret boss of the game, and I think he's easily the hardest fight in the game, beating out Solgren and Sonic the Hedgehog. Firstly, they roll out the whole catalog of all the dumb shit that happens in their own game. Each attack requires a lot of memorization and adaptation. Especially difficult are the monkey and the bees. My god, the bees. You don't understand how crazy this is. You can't even see where they're coming from. But if you survive long enough, you can finally damage him. Only thing is, you have to do it as you're bouncing on UFOs while avoiding parrots, all while Godzilla's creeping up on your ass. After you kill them, don't celebrate because this isn't even their final form. After fusing into this abomination, you have to pump as many bullets into him as possible while they throw tornadoes and bombs. Eventually, they will fall. The clip you're seeing right now is mine, and this video was the first time I even beat these guys, so those are genuine jumps for joy. It was actually also the first video I made back when I was in high school. I think that says something that I beat them 5 years ago and I still haven't found someone harder. Well, there it is. From my experience, the 10 hardest bosses I've beaten. Like I said, this video is a first for me, so I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I thoroughly enjoyed making it, and I hope to continue to branch out. I'd also like to formally thank all my subscribers. I'd never thought I'd see the day I'd have 40,000. I definitely have plans for the future, and I hope you guys stick around. Thanks for watching, folks. Johnny out.